Right. So I think we can just make a slow start, and while people are joining, we can discuss a community question that was asked yesterday by Artyom. So the question is the following: in the context of waiting for another version of .NET, maybe someone can explain how works compatibility between different .NET versions. Now, what about libraries and C# language features and so on? Yeah, that's quite interesting question, and it's not an easy task to understand what's going on with their versioning hell. Microsoft is not very good here. So actually, also there are some links that we shared in our well, especially this one regarding .NET standard we shared in our list. However, I decided to create like my own table. At least this is my understanding. Well, we validated internally how this compatibility between different versions of .NET and C# language features work. So again, this is not official, but at least this is very close to what is going on, and at least this is how we understand it. So here we have like different implementations of .NET, but that's not all the .NET that we have. We also could add here Mono, we could add Xamarin, we could add here Unity. It's all also different flavors of .NET, but our primary .NETs are like .NET 5, 6, 7, and 8 that will be released. This is a current version, up-to-date version. We also had a .NET Core, which was a slightly different. Well, it's close to what we have, but like it was an early version. We have .NET Standard, and we still have a legacy .NET Full Framework. Well, it's not legacy officially, but a bit outdated, let's say. So in this table, you can see the libraries that you can reference and the language that you can use, like the definitions. So if you reference .NET X, so which libraries can you reference then? So basically you can reference all .NET standard libs, because even .NET 5, the earlier one, compliant with .NET Standard 2.1. So that means if you .NET 5, if you have .NET 5, 6, 7, so you can use any .NET Standard libraries. Also, you can reference all the libraries that has a target .NET X and lower. So, for example, if you reference .NET 7, you can use libraries .NET from .NET 7, .NET 6, .NET 5. So everything will work. What will not work, at least you will get a compile time error if you have, let's say, .NET 5 and try to add a .NET 6 library. This wouldn't work. What else? Actually, when Microsoft started investing in a .NET Core, which got like all these fancy cross-platform features and so on, there was still a .NET Framework alive, and a lot of libraries targeted .NET Framework. So Microsoft introduced shim compatibility. So that means if you target .NET 5, you can reference .NET Framework, any version library, but at your own risk, because .NET Framework was initially designed and worked only on Windows platforms. So that means if you reference some library that has Windows-specific APIs and you are, let's say, on Mac or Linux, you'll get not a compile time, but runtime error. So everything will be compilable. You will get some warnings, but during the runtime, you will get an error once you try to call the API that you don't have on your operational system. So what about programming languages? It's quite simple here. So each version of .NET Framework comes with a kind of primary C# language version. So for example, .NET 8 will come with C# 12, .NET 7 came with C# 11. So if you are on a .NET 7, you can use C# 11. But because of the loose coupling between the compiler, which is a Roslyn compiler, you can probably, sorry, Mike decided to join us. So you can probably reference with some hacks. Apologize. You can reference with some hacks and try to use some later C# version. Sometimes you will have to do some stops and so on. But generally speaking, Roslyn, if it supports like C#12 and you are on .NET 7, it will try to compile, but probably you will get some compile time errors if you try to use a language that couldn't be compiled in with C# with a .NET 7 library set. So like pretty similar situation for .NET Core. If you are on .NET Core, you can use .NET Core X and Y or lower. You can reference .NET Standard 2.1 if you are on a .NET Core 3 and higher. If you are lower, then you can use .NET Standard 2.0 and lower. And again, same with .NET Framework libraries. Regarding language version, you can use C#8 for a .NET Core App 3 and higher, and you can for the rest you can use C#7.3 for .NET Core App 2 versions. So if you decided to create a really portable library that could be used even with some .NET frameworks, you can target .NET Standard. In that case, you will be able to target .NET Standard, same or lower versions, and also through the same compatibility, you will be able to reference .NET Framework libraries. And regarding language versions, it's up to C#8, depending on the .NET Standard. If you are on a .NET Framework, you are limited here with the libraries targeted .NET Framework, and also starting from .NET 4.6.1, you will be able to use .NET Standard libraries. Yeah, and the language version is up to C#7.3. But again, with some compile hacks, you will be able to get a higher. You will be able to use some flavors of C# from the higher versions. Vladimir, would you like to add, or Denis, like really quickly here, or I covered most of the things?
Maybe just to mention some hacking zone here, because after the compilation is done, you have binary. And in this binary, already C# does not exist, and it is intermediate language. And I think you can reference this binary in your application, even if it's higher version of .NET that your application was developed with. But if it's version installed on the target machine, since it somehow with some hacks can even just be executed, and you can call some methods from this binary. Of course, it's a little bit more hacky thing, but I think after the compilation and during the runtime, you have an extra frame that can be extended in this case, even if your application tries to reference higher version of .NET. Because most of these compilations is just some kind of compile time compilations, and if you do not support particular C# features and your project is configured for .NET 5, but you try to use some features from .NET 7, of course you get some errors from the compilation time. Most of the time, Roslyn just does some kind of lowering thing. It's some kind of syntax sugar. New features usually transformed into some old, well-known features, but maybe there's extra code generated. And if it is the case, you can use the binary with intermediate language.
Yeah, thanks, Denis. Okay, that was the question from the community. Artem, let's talk about that in details at the end. I know you probably have some questions. I see your hand raised. Let's discuss that at the end, because we still have some links and we wanted to go through them really quickly, and then at the end we will discuss. Cool. Let's start from like some small but really nice things. First of all, Microsoft decided to announce a new foundational C# certification in a partnership with FreeCodeCamp. So for us, people who are already in this industry, this doesn't really important, but for people who are just in the beginning of their career, this is a kind of a way to get an achievements, right? So get some certification, get some practical skills. So this is really nice, and because if we take a look at the industry today, so it's quite tough time for juniors, and getting some kind of achievements, proving their skills is a really nice thing to get their first job. What else? This one is from a PEM Nginx community. So there will be a conference. Everyone can register on it, not only PEMers. It's Nginx Community Day 2023. And why I really want to advertise, because of these two guys. You know them, Denis, you know them. Both are very famous .NET speakers, right? So Scott Hanselman is a Microsoft employee for many years, and he will be presenting on our conference with his presentation about moving 17 years old of legacy code and sites into the cloud. Really nice to watch. It would be really nice to watch Hanselman's presentation. I like his way of presenting, like his presentation skills. And there will be another quite rock star from .NET, Dylan Beatty, also very famous guy. A lot of community talks were conducted by him, and he's like very charismatic person. Really recommend to join the conference and listen these two .NET gurus, because you will hear some fun, really. Okay, let's move on. So Volodya, I think it's your topic. .NET 8 release candidate 1.
Yeah, it's a major milestone in the road to release in November. It's release candidate 1. What does it mean is that you can start using, in theory, .NET 8 in production apps, because Microsoft treats release candidates as production-ready versions, but be mindful about it. It's better to test before you start. And mostly release candidate 1 and release candidate 2 will contain bug fixes and stabilization before release and last-minute additions and features. And in this release candidate announcement, they mostly described what was done before and what was merged to RC1 version. It's improvements in system text JSON, which will be covered by a separate article in more details. So let's scroll down.
This one?
Yeah, this one, but I'm not sure that it will be interesting.
It's not really interesting. That's another way of compiling your code to reduce the binary size. They introduced this for Android and for WASM, right? So not really fancy.
Actually, the whole announcement is not really fancy. Just highlights some interesting points, like hardware acceleration on VPF, WPF.
During remote desktop protocol connection.
Yeah, it can improve your performance if you still use this framework on your project. And yeah.
By the way, if we're talking about mobile platform, they really been able to reduce the final application size up to 40% less. I think it is a really good achievement.
Good achievement for sure.
Yeah, and once you chosen ahead of time compilation, the application size was not so fancy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so ASP.NET Core release candidate 1.
Yeah, regarding ASP.NET Core, they decided after long discussions to disable HTTP3 by default, because it introduces additional complications into development experience, because you will be asked if you trust this process to run on your machine if you start HTTP3 application locally. So they decided to disable it. A lot of improvements and additions to Blazor. I'm not sure if they're valuable for everyone.
Yeah,
because it's a question about technology still,
it's fun. Yeah, right. It's real fun to see how much time, how much efforts Microsoft invested in Blazor to make it to make it cool, but people still don't treat it as a production-ready framework that could be applicable for business or like business level applications or like
Yeah, interesting part is that in last
applications.
few releases they make huge investments into areas which will be benefited for themselves, like native IoT performance improvements, because they also use .NET inside Azure. So on higher scale, it will save them money, but I still don't get the point of Blazor, because they make huge investments into it each release, but they don't have any own applications built with it. So what's the point? Like
Agree.
when they
Totally
will
agree.
start
They should
to
start using it. They should start showing that that's a production-ready framework. So what I wanted to highlight here is this keyed services. Yeah. So I think it's nice that you can.
It's nice to have, but it's questionable feature from my perspective, because you already can do it in a much cleaner way with custom factory implementation.
Yeah. Agree.
And marker interfaces.
And Entity Framework. I know you are a big fan of Entity Framework.
I'm a big fan, but for some reasons they stopped to publish updates in each
release candidate or version
release
preview.
Preview version and so on. So they stopped it at the point of preview 4 or preview 3, and in this article they decided to highlight what was done as part of EF8 preparation, and
especially stopped on these complex types as value objects.
Yeah, it's a very, I'd say, complex topic about complex types, because from my perspective, EF Core currently has a lot of like bloatware functionality, which is not needed for like 99% of projects, and they can keep doing it.
Agree.
Keep improving it for what? Like for fanboys of DDD, like what is the percent of such?
Exactly. So some time ago I interviewed a candidate from external market who had a good experience in DDD, and when we started talking about ORMs, he immediately said that he's not a fan of ORMs because they are not DDD friendly.
Yeah, it's 20.
Yeah,
it's 2023, but people still keep creating custom repositories. Maybe they need to address it first before introducing even more complex stuff into framework. I think they should like change the direction into be more lightweight, maybe to create EF Core Lite, like to make it native IoT compatible, to perform like Dapper, to don't have all that stuff which is not used by most of projects.
Interesting idea.
That's my opinion.
Interesting. So I liked this one, immutable records. So you can like declare a record, use this with syntax, which is not used widely. For some reasons, I like it, and everything works fine with the immutable records. Like it. Okay.
Let's move on to most interesting and most important.
I hope it will load in my browser. This one is a performance improvements in .NET by Steven Taub.
It's long awaited article, at least personally by me. It's like a New Year gift every year when you wait for this article. It appears and you read it for several days, and you see all the stuff and all this work that put into release preparation. What you can get out of the box by just increasing version.
Just take a look at my scroll bar, how small it is.
Oh,
because I am starting scrolling it, and it doesn't really move.
if you decide to print this page, it will create 218 pages. It's like a book, and it's worth reading for everyone who is interested in what's happening on .NET.
So basically, this is like the most important sentence in this article. So .NET 7 was super fast, and .NET 8 is even faster. And here is the justification why it is faster. Yeah, a lot of areas where they improved the performance. We've talked a lot about tired compilation and dynamic PGO. Yeah, so there is
now it's enabled by default, and your application will benefit from it. But maybe one of interesting topics we described in this article, and that we can briefly touch is addition to garbage collection modes. Because with new target runtime, such as native IoT, they introduce datas concept. It's a server garbage collector with additional tweaks, I'd say. It will adapt to your workload, and if it doesn't need so much memory, it will reduce by itself. So it is beneficial for containers workloads. When most of the time your container is idle, it will shrink its memory and just save your money for your resources. But if it sees additional load on it, it will scale by itself. So it's adaptive technology.
Cool.
What we missed for years, I believe. And what
should we enable it explicitly, or it will be a default behavior of release?
For native IoT, it's enabled by default. For any other deployment target, it's disabled by default, but you can enable it manually. And they say that in .NET 9, they target to enable it for everyone by default, so everyone will benefit from it, from this work.
Cool. Next.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So this one is also like a gift from Microsoft. So now you can start using .NET 8 on your Azure functions. So .NET 8 is not released yet, but you can try it. You can start moving your Azure functions to .NET 8, which is kind of cool.
It seems like not only on Azure functions, but also on Azure App Service, because Azure App Service is underlying hosting option for Azure function, and it will not work without it.
Yeah. So the next few topics about Visual Studio. So this one is about elevating debugging with auto decompilation and external sources. So this is cool. So now you can easily dive into the libraries that are third-party libraries, and you can easily debug, explore the source code. Even if you are, let's say, doing WPF development, you can drill down into the WPF logic, see what's inside, be really scared with the source code, and try to proceed the development based on the knowledge that you can get from the source code. So I think exploring the source code is a nice thing when the documentation is not enough for you, which is quite frequent situation with the community libraries, community projects, or just not very well documented features. So really easy to explore the code of everything that you are referencing to. So you can enable it, and it can be decompiled if the source code cannot be fetched from the GitHub. And the next one, I think, Denis, you was upset because of that. So Visual Studio for Mac will be retired. So Microsoft decided to stop investing into this Visual Studio for Mac, which is, I think, initially was Mono development project, then it was Xamarin development to Visual Studio for Mac.
Yeah, true.
Did some rebranding.
Most of the time, seems it was some kind of reputational loss, because a lot of developers started to complain, hey guys, what the product will be next? Will it be .NET MAUI or not? Because seems you just really doing something wrong. We are scared a little bit because seems Silverlight situation gonna
repeat it
again, and even some kind of top managers on their community stand up were trying to assure people, hey, .NET MAUI has bright future, no worries about this. We just only decided to deprecate Visual Studio for Mac, but we really invested a lot in .NET unification, and especially .NET MAUI. They really invested a lot of money into this just to make the .NET to be cross-platform. Now, during the last 5 years, it's a huge amount of money. I don't think they're just gonna close .NET MAUI after this.
Yeah. Interesting fact is that they invested a lot of in development of .VS for Mac in recent years because they rewritten the whole UI stack to Mac native technologies and then killed it.
Yeah,
seems like a politics.
They just introduced this C# dev kit to be installed in Visual Studio Code, saying, "Hey, everything will be working fine." But it's really weird decision, I guess, because I don't think that Visual Studio for Mac team was consuming so big budgets. They just decided to close it.
Agree.
They did a favor to Rider. They gave this market.
Exactly. So there are actually,
to be honest,
some
Rider
alternatives
on Mac machines doesn't work so well. I can tell you that Visual Studio for Mac works better than Rider. Rider is really, especially on my M1 chip MacBook Pro, Rider doesn't show really great results. It works slower than Visual Studio Mac.
Interesting. Okay, cool. So they suggest a couple of alternatives, and Rider is not in the list. Interesting. Okay, but anyway, you can use Visual Studio Code. You can use Parallels, for example, to run Visual Studio on your Mac, and they also offer cloud version, which is probably quite niche decision. Cool. Few other links to share and discuss. This one, I really like it. This is about .NET observability with OpenTelemetry. And in this article, you will get some understanding about what is actually observability. Basically, it's a combination of logs collected, metrics, and distributed tracing. And here Microsoft describes how OpenTelemetry now supported by, which is a standard. How OpenTelemetry is supported in a .NET, and it seems like we're in a really good shape here. You can plug in OpenTelemetry collectors, exposers, and produce your own metrics if you need. Then expose this data to Prometheus, Jaeger, or any other third-party monitoring telemetry system.
As far as I know, in regards of OpenTelemetry, .NET Runtime was one of the first platforms that integrated OpenTelemetry compatible design and types into base classes. And with each release, it improves and makes base classes even closer to what OpenTelemetry is accepts. And I think that at some point, OpenTelemetry additional packages won't be needed because metrics will be integrated. Like right now, we have collectors for .NET Runtime as additional library for ASP.NET Core, for HTTP client, but starting from .NET 8 release, everything is integrated inside base class libraries. So such integration won't be needed out the box. And recently, OpenTelemetry reached major milestone. They published the release version of standard 1.0 of OpenTelemetry because it was in beta for several years.
So what I wanted to say that, for example, on my current project, all these tools are used, Prometheus, Jaeger, and it's nice to see that Microsoft describes how to plug it in a proper way. For example, here is a step-by-step article how to add some Prometheus metrics collected, how to add the Grafana on top, how to see what's going on in your application with distributed tracing and Jaeger. So this is like all well-known community approved tool sets, and Microsoft support this. So really cool, and recommend to read. And if you don't have any telemetry and you have some plans, I really recommend to start investing into OpenTelemetry because you have all the necessary libraries here. And few more articles, really just fun community things. So this one about the guy who created Rust compiler for .NET platform. That's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, he managed to run his Rust code compiled into intermediate language and to run on .NET platform. It's a very complex process.
It's a real big effort, right? Yeah. So to produce the compiler for a language that initially designed to be like to work without any runtimes, and run it on top of .NET, that's fun.
The funniest part is that this article was written and created by Schoolboy.
Exactly, yeah. So if you read the whole article, you probably would start thinking, oh, that this guy is really clever, and then at the end you will see that he's a person who is studying at school, and because of that he is going to stop his investments, like significant investments into this project. That's a fun thing. Okay, so the last one, I like this. To be honest, the community repository created by Michal.
This person is interesting because he's most active contributor into native IoT integration in .NET 8 and .NET 7. So he created such a repo where he compares size of compiled Hello World applications using different languages. And funny fact is that C# compiled into native IoT is closer to Rust than to Go binary. Go is more than twice as big as C#.
Yeah. And just a reminder, Go is a like natively compiled language, right? So it doesn't have any runtimes, but the output of Hello World application compiled on Go language is higher comparing to C#, which is a runtime based language. Even if it's IoT compiled, it's still runtime based language.
And does it mean that .NET platform somehow was embedded into this binary or not?
Oh, yes, absolutely. You even if it's IoT compiled, you still have the runtime inside your natively compiled IoT compiled binary.
Yeah, in reality, native IoT is not just a term; it's a target runtime. It's equivalent of core CLR. It has garbage collector. It has own exception handling, all the stuff. But the only thing that it doesn't have is JIT. So your program was pre-JITed during compilation into native IoT. So it has all capabilities that you have by default, except for maybe reflection and
it has stuff. Some flavors of reflection, but not everything will work. Yeah. Because it requires JITing. For example, if you wanted to load some, let's say, .NET libraries that are not compiled into IoT, so that wouldn't work because it's IoT compiled. Well, I assume that theoretically they could include like JIT into the IoT, and then you will have like a kind of hybrid runtime model, which also exists. So you can just not only use IoT or like full JIT, you can have like tired compilation where part of your code is natively compiled, part of your code will still be in the intermediate language shape in the final binary.
Yeah, maybe.
But anyway, so cool to see that C# is in a really good shape here.
Yeah, Haskell is not. Biggest one for some reason.
Right. I think we've covered all the articles and we still have some time to answer on the community questions. I remember Artyom raised the hand. Artyom, are you still with us? Seems like he is not. Oh, Artyom, okay. Please raise your hand. Okay, let's unmute. Okay, somebody has allowed your mic, Artem. Okay. You can speak.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for the talk. I would like to clarify a bit the compatibility. I'm not so sure probably about that idea, but I feel like it is possible to use in different directions this compatibility when this let's say the version of the library you're referencing could be higher or lower than the version of the library that is used as a base. But until you touch some let's say not supported IP, like in case of the C# language, let's say it is not possible to use .NET 7 libraries in .NET 6 solution, in .NET 6 application, until you are not using tricky things like this static abstract features, because to support this static abstract, they make some changes inside the runtime. So the runtime is a bit different. But until you are not using it, sometimes it's possible and it will fail in the future. It definitely will show you a lot of warnings before you will run it, but there is these tricky things. And what is even maybe more interesting, because probably it's not a huge secret, we have a lot of legacy code, is that you can use, but I'm not sure about the details, but in a general idea, probably I will explain, you can use .NET libraries in .NET Framework application, again, with the huge warnings and a lot of stuff, but until you are not touching some specific API, it will work. That is the interesting. So that's why I'm asking, because for me it's absolutely not obvious, and I'm not sure
obvious
about
for
all
everyone,
details,
I think.
About all details of these mechanics besides SCN, but I feel like it works. So sometimes it could be useful, I think.
Yeah, so generally speaking, on each platform where we have Shim compatibility, which is a part of .NET Runtime, you probably can use like libraries that are not like officially supported by your platform, where you on top of which you are building your application. So I assume that some of what you has just shared may work. Yeah, I assume that with some hacks and tricks that may work. However, we tried yesterday to reference .NET 8 libraries from .NET 7, and we got a compile time error. So there were probably some checks during the compilation, and Roslyn was able to, or MS Build was able to detect. I'm not sure who. So maybe with some tricks, you still can do that.
Probably, as far as I remember, there were some fixes, but they're absolutely not essential. They're absolutely not complex, and it could depend on API you're using. So yes, I'm not fully sure about it, but I saw how it works for several times. That's why I'm asking. Thank you.
Yeah. So generally speaking, it all comes to the fact whether you're ready to do this hacks and tricks on production project or not. So because if this is not officially supported, that's not officially documented way to do things, then probably you may have some troubles at some point, right, on your production, which is something that you don't want to have, right? So even like this situation when you can reference .NET Framework libraries from .NET Standard or .NET Core or .NET 5, 6, 7, there is still a chance that you may get some runtime error during the application execution. And
definitely, the idea is about the case when you don't have a source code and you, for some reason, sure that you have the very pure logic using the string list and common math, and that's okay for you, and you're sure that your library will work. But for some reason, compilers think that it is not possible. But actually, in some cases, it's possible. That's the idea.
True. That's true. All right. So do we have any other questions from the community? Because if not, I think we can wrap up the call. So I think no other questions. So thanks everyone who joined, and I think that's it. See you next time. Okay, I saw Adam. Adam has just raised the hand. Adam, or it was probably occasionally.
I suppose he was waving us goodbye.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thanks everyone. Bye, and have a good rest of your day, and have a nice, beautiful weekend.
Yeah, have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye.